These Mark III coaches then. TT120 Hornby. Should we fit lights in it? Let's do that. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video we've got the lovely TT120 scale Mark III coach. Now what you've got in front of you here is the N-Gage Mark III coach by Dapol. The one in the middle there is the TT120 gauge scale Mark III by Hornby, and then this guy up here is the 00 gauge version by Hornby as well. So here it's just showing you the size difference. What I'm going to show you in this video can translate across to N-Gage, TT gauge, and also into the 00 gauge models. But also you can do what I'm just about to show you with the lights on the Mark 1s offered in TT120 by Hornby as well. Pretty much, I think this is a transferable thing across most coaches if they haven't got lights installed. So follow me on our little journey and we shall fit lights to our Mark III coach. Okay guys, so we have got our gorgeous Mark III coach here. I mean, just look at the way the light's gleaming off it. It looks fantastic. What we're going to do is essentially feed a wire down the centre of the bogies. Okay, so what I'll show you first is actually how to take those off, because it's just easier. Just grab a side, carefully wiggle and pull, and they just pop off like that. What you want to be careful of is all this extra detail. So these steps, I thought I'd broken one off, I haven't. There's 3, so there's not one there, there's one there, one there, and one there. It's quite common on the Dapol coaches in N-Gage to actually snap those off. So orientation wise, you see that pin that faces the coupling end of the coach when you put it back on. So in these wheel sets there's actually a plastic piece there that's insulating this wheel and axle from that wheel, so the rail's never short. Now what we'll be doing is putting a brass contact on these axles that will join these axles together, and that'll be one side of the rail, and then it'll go through this hole inside to the coach. On the actual coach itself, if you have a look, the plastic pieces are on these wheels over here, but not on the other side. If we come down here with that little nub facing the coupling end, just put that back in, so they just click back in. The plastic pieces are actually on the other side, so what this means is we can take power from one side of the track, one end of the coach with these wheels, and then we can take power from the other rail of the track on this side over here. So you can't get power from the ones with the wheels that have got the plastic bits, so just make sure your bogies are opposing. Okay, so this side's got the insulators, that side's got the insulators, so then these guys take the power, left hand, right hand, left hand, whatever. Okay, so we'll pull these off. I just wanted to give you a little overview there of what's going on, because some things get lost in the videos. So we've now got a coach without bogies, and there's clips on this plastic chassis here that are just behind the body. You can feed something down there. I'm just going to manhandle this. What I like to do is try and get a nail under the body and work my way around. You see it just lift, so hold a bit of tension there. Try not to squash the body because you'll probably push the wheels out. So we've got one side started. So if I come over to the other side and pull that out, see it's coming out now. just work along. I think there's 3 clips either side. And you know, this could be handy if you also want to add people into the coach. I'm not going to do that in this video. I think it's pretty self-explanatory once you actually get in there. Okay, so once you've got an end out both sides, your life is much easier, but you've got to be so careful not to snap these steps off. So that end's still in, but if I just pull it out like this and get my finger down there, there you go, pop out. Okay, these coaches, it doesn't matter, but you might want to remember which orientation it goes in. Okay, so when you pull it out, the shell comes out with the windows, and that's what you get. Yep, put that to one side so it's safe. These are beautiful. The paint job on those is great. The seats there, you see, they're actually held on with that screw and that screw. I don't need to take them off, so I'm not going to, but I'm not taking it off, but you can see in there that little metal thing, that is a ballast weight that's screwed down to this. That whole piece there is just a void of lovely space. You could put a decoder in there if you wanted to. You could even put a lithium battery in there, so this thing would just be powered forever. Completely up to you. What we're going to do though is, now that that's disassembled, is I'm just going to show you the electronics that we're going to need and the tools we're going to need, okay? First up is the LED strip light that I'm using. These come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. I can't really tell you too much about it, other than I'll put a link in the description to the one that I think will be the most similar to this. What we really want to concentrate on though is that the thing is rated for 12 volts, and on here you see you can cut it down into little segments. There's a little scissor mark, and you can literally cut it with a pair of scissors. But this guy is 15 centimeters long. Now you could probably make it a bit longer, but I don't think it's needed. And to be honest with you, this is just what I had laying around. Make sure, I mean, I'm using warm white, and it's rated at 12 volts, and that's about it. The next thing will be white tack. Now I'm going to be using white tack and a bit of tape. The tape is just to sort of hold things in place whilst we put the body back together, and sort of hold things, I guess, in place whilst they live in there for the rest of their life. You could use a Kapton tape if you really wanted to, but I don't think it's really needed. Next up is a capacitor. So in our case again, this one here is rated up to 25 volts. Going over that voltage would be dangerous. And also, so the amount that this is going to hold is well, I don't know electronics that much, but this is rated at 220 UF there. If you find your light isn't being illuminated for long enough, you increase that number. There's 2 ways of doing that really, or 3 ways. First way would be get another capacitor that's the same and wire it in parallel. So to make your light stay illuminated for longer, you'd connect the negative terminals, which are indicated with this white line. So they'd be connected together, the positives would be connected together, and you'd treat that as one capacitor then, but it's essentially 2 wired in parallel. The second thing you could do is just get a bigger capacitor, but the form factor means that it would just cylindrically be a bigger volume. That might work, but I find buying lots of the same one and either putting them in parallel, I don't tend to put them in series because that's a voltage thing, but that can also help. Your third option, the reason we're going with this, by the way, is because these are cheap as chips, and they're quite commonplace, but just make sure you get the ones that say 25 volts, because if you go 16 volts you're pretty close. If you get 10 volts you're probably over. And it's worth noting at this point, actually, my track voltage is 12 volts. Most people, I think, are about 16 volts. So this whole setup will work for you as well, on DC and DCC, when you've made it. these things are polarised, they only like DC voltage. And if you're wiring backwards, say you put positive on here instead of negative, it would bugger the capacitor up. It would be dead, it just wouldn't do anything. So that's what we're using. The third option of capacitor you see is just getting a tantalum capacitor which packs more punch. There's also super capacitors which look similar to those, but you kind of find them in Stay Alives. They're really good, like you get like a 1 farad capacitor. So yeah, but this is good enough for what we're going to do, so we're going to stay with that. Next up is a resistor. Now you can just about see it. That's a 0603 resistor. Okay, so I'm going to use this because I'm a bit silly. But what this is going to control, you see, is the fade down of the lights. So the discharge of that capacitor into those lights when there isn't power to the coach. What I'll do is I'll put a link to this one, but I'm not recommending it. I'll put a link in the description to one of these, rated at 510 ohms, and you know, all these bits, and then that will get you in a very good running place, I think, with the coaches. If your lights, so in short, there's two things to bear in mind here. But by the components I'm going to show you, but if your lights don't stay on long enough, they go off too quick, add more capacitance. If they go off too quick, increase the resistance on this resistor. You could probably go up to 1 kiloohm, okay, 1k, and then you'll be good. So we're going to use, in our case, and the reason these two are adjustable is because people have got different track voltages and people will have different lights. So these two can be finessed to get the same result I'm getting. But if you get these bits, you'll probably be okay. That was a lot of words to say. Right, next up is we need to get power from our bogies actually to our lighting circuit here. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is actually make a full bridge rectifier. And all that means is we're going to use these electrical items here, which are called diodes, in a certain orientation, which will take pulses of power and basically make it DC for our DC circuit, because this guy here doesn't like AC power. These probably would be okay, and so would that, but we want this bit to work all the time. If we turn the coach round, we want it to work. If we're not on someone else's track, we want it to work. So we're going to use this to take our bogie power, which would be left hand and right hand rail, and turn it into two DC outputs, which will be our track voltage at that point to power our LED light. Just know that I'm using a 12 volt track, hence there's going to be a slight difference, but I think you guys will be alright with 16 volts. I've tested this actually on my DC controller, and I think that's actually going up to 17 volts. So it looks the same versus my DCC 12 volt setup, so I don't think you're going to have any issues. Next up is wiring. Now the wiring I'm using, or the wire I'm using, is this stuff. It's tiny. It's 34 AWG. That's the gauge of it. It's multi-strand wires inside this insulator, this black colour. You can get it in different colours. I just got a load of it in black. I like it like that. And I suppose as well, if it's black, you don't really see it that well. If it was white, you might see it in a cab or something. So this is PTFE 34 AWG wire, and you can buy it as a spool on a reel, or or whatnot. Links will be in the description for all of this stuff. If you've got any questions, ask away in the comments. But I think what we've got here is going to be okay for most people's setups on DCC, DC, 12 volt to about 17 volts, because that's kind of where I've tested it all. Okay. yeah. Right, tools then. What am I going to use as tools? I'm telling you all this stuff because in a minute I'm just going to do a time lapse and just show how to make it. I'll probably flash up a schematic of what things are wired like. Get yourself a set of tweezers, okay? Very handy for, you know, moving tiny little things about. Takes a bit of practice, but if you use these long enough, they just feel like an extension of your body. A set of snips, so you can cut your wires and components, pins and things. And what I've just noticed, the most important thing that I haven't told you about, this stuff, the brass sheeting, this is very thin, and this is essentially our pickup material from the axles. I'll show you that in a second. We're going to cut that into a strip. There'll be a link in the description again. Solder, I'm using leaded solder. Okay, this has got a flux built into it. So for my soldering, I'll be using a soldering iron. I showed this in a video about 2 years ago, I think, and it is brilliant. It's got a digital readout there. Now, that is literally it heating up that quick. I set my gun to 450 degrees Celsius, or 455. It'll get there in a minute. The beautiful thing about this though is if you don't use it for about 8 minutes, it turns itself off, and you can see how quick it takes to heat up. It's not long at all, and you can just use it again. But that's handy. So when you grab it, and when it turns itself off, when you grab it, it'll actually turn itself back on. It's got like a vibration sensor in it. There you go, so it's already at temperature. I could solder with that right now. But the safety thing with this is if you forget to turn it off, like unplug it or turn it off, it will turn itself off. Unless it's shooken. Oh my god, my English is quite bad. Shaken. Okay, that's everything I think. Let's just go over to the coach and let's build this guy. Okay, so you're going to need a pair of scissors probably as well. Okay, so cut the strips about 25mm long and try and get them about 3mm or just below that. And what you want to do is just mark the middle of it. So you can use a cocktail stick. Half of 25 is 12.5. So 10, 12.5 is about there. And I'm just going to dent it with the cocktail stick. And then what you want to do, flip it over so that it's curving down to the bench. This is just a weight to hold it down. This is really going to be one of the trickier bits to do, because what you want to do is now solder that. So we're going to put a bit of solder on our dimple. Okay, not a lot. And then using some of that wire, I'll try and show you this on the camera. It's important to try and add your solder to the wire and the soldering iron at the same time. So you see that? This is very small stuff. And we go back to our dimple. Try and get it as central as you possibly can. And you don't want to be on there for very long. I'll just push that to one side. So there we go, you see. We've got our brass and our wire. Okay, so once you've managed, I know this is not going to be easy for everybody, but it's a way to do it. This stuff is very small and fiddly, but just take your time. You want to get a curve on these. And it bends very easily, but it's also quite springy, so you know you can sort of mould it into the shape you're after. And we're going to go for like a half moon shape like this, okay? It's not got to be perfect. And then we can put it in the bogey. So I should note here, the wires are quite long. I'm overusing the wire here. So each piece is about 20 centimeters long. And I'm just feeding that through the center there of the bogie. Hook it under that axle. And you see, it's not the neatest in the world, but what it's allowing is that axle there will just rub on that brass, and this one over here as well. It's just on that, you can just see it. So in this case, this bit of brass is going to be taking power from this rail. And so then what we want to do is just put a bit of white tack over the thing like that. So this is quite handy because if the axles eventually wear through the brass, you can just take the white tack off, and it's strong enough to sort of just stay there. So that's one bogie. Do the other bogie exactly the same, and you can pop them back in the chassis, which is what we'll do next. Okay, so we've got both our bogies now with wires and pickups. That is probably the thing that will probably take you a while, and I just want to show you how easy these roll. Okay, because people are probably going to ask, oh well, that slows them down, doesn't it? Not by a lot. Amazing. That's just rolling. Anyway, right, enough of that. What we need to do then is we grab our first bogie, and we just feed that up and through the hole in the centre of the coach. And remember, right at the beginning I was on about that little pin. That's just got to be facing the coupling end. Be careful not to catch the wire, pop her in, and that's in. We've got black isolators on one side of the coach, one end, so where my finger is there, and on the other end our black isolators are on the other side of the coach. They have to be opposing, like diagonals like that, because we're going to take power from this side and take power from that side. So each wire here, one will be positive, one will be negative. That's kind of the easiest way that I can say it. So that is probably the hardest bit to get right. Absolutely fantastic. Right, let's get on to putting all the electronics in it, I guess. Okay, so having zoomed in on here, you're going to see on these diodes, these are tiny. You can get bigger diodes, by the way, but I haven't got any to show you. But right, so on this diode here, you see there's a line, and there's a line there. These are upside down at the minute. That line dictates that is the anode, which is negative. Okay. So what we want to do is get two where the lines face each other, like this, and then two where the lines are going to be facing outwards. Just like this. Now, what I find very helpful sometimes is to get a bit of masking tape and stick it to the table. So what you can do is pop these on there like so. And the tape will just temporarily hold them when we solder them. So the first thing we're going to do is solder our outer pins. So from this resistor, I'm going to cut this leg off because we don't need that. that long, but I need the wire. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to cut the other leg off the resistor like that. Okay, and then we'll get our soldering iron and try and be careful. Now that they're joined like that, what you can do, because we need to do this anyway, is turn them upside down. So we'll just put this one here for a minute. I think for most people it would be easier just to buy one of these chips already made, but me making one and showing you, it just shows that you can make things from basic components. What you'd be looking for is a full bridge rectifying chip, and it'll just have 4 pins on it, so you won't have to solder it all together like I'm doing here. This is what would be in one of those chips. So I'm making a chip. So then what we're going to do is just come in and join these two. Well, I suppose join the diodes together. I'm being very careful not to put too much heat into this, and you'll see this like liquid stuff. It's actually the flux out of the solder. Now what we've got here is a full bridge rectifier. Now try and do this with my knife. So for your reference, our track inputs, so from our forward bogey it'll be this guy, from our rear bogey it'll be that guy. It doesn't matter which way you wire those round, but our bogies are this pin and this pin. Okay, so now we've got a full bridge rectifier. Okay, what we want to do is get our capacitor like so, and I told you about it being polarized, so this white line, this is our negative pin. So this is how our capacitor has to be wired. Because power's coming in on these lines, it will come out where the capacitor is, onto the capacitor's wires there. So what we'll do is, that's sort of holding itself in. I'm just going to snip this down a bit. It's a good idea with a capacitor just to do one pin at a time, not both of them, but this isn't charged, so we're okay. And solder that on there, and that on there. So I'm going to put this wire isn't connected to anything at the other end. I'm just going to wire it on to the capacitor. Okay, I'm going on the positive side, it doesn't really matter for the resistor. Now this is where you guys will want to use this resistor, but I'm going to use my small resistor, this little guy. And she's on just like that. So when you wire your lights, this is what you want to kind of try and make. This part of your resistor goes to the negative on the LED light. This part goes to the positive on your LED light, and then this guy can go to any of the bogies, it doesn't matter, and then this one will just go to the other bogey. Okay, so I've just wired the bogies to those pins there. Again, it doesn't matter which way round you put those on to those pins. The ones that are important are that one and that one that go to the LED. If you get them backwards, the LEDs won't light up, because LEDs are dependent on polarity. So they want to be one way round, not the other way. So if they don't light up, chances are you've got those wires the wrong way around. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just pre-tin these wires, because we're close now to joining our light up to the circuit. So just bring our trusty solder in again, pre-tin the wires. And just remember, in our case, it doesn't matter which side you put that resistor on, by the way. You can put it on this negative side or on the positive side. It's on the negative side in our case, so I know the wire coming from it is negative, so I'm going to connect that to the negative terminal on the LED, this strip, and then a positive to the positive. Okay, just like that. I know I'm making the solder look easier than probably a lot of you are going to find, but it's totally doable, as I'm showing here. At this point here, this is where you want to put some tape over that area there, so we'll just do that. Now, it's not the prettiest tape job, but it's doing a function, so we're good there. Now I'm just going to flip the light over. We'll zoom out for you. And I've just laid the light over here. I'll bring my trusty masking tape in. So what I'm going to do is just tape. You'll notice actually on the carriage itself, on the seats, there's a post there and there's a post there. Now I don't think they do anything with the roof body, or roof of the body. So I actually think they're a future thing that Hornby might bring out for a light bar for these coaches. That's my hunch. We'll just have to wait and see. So this tape is just literally to hold this light bar roughly in place. So what we're going to do now, before we put the body back on, is, I know it looks lumpy and bumpy, but it's okay. We're just going to go test this on the track and see what we get. Okay, so here at the test track then. Well, that's good. Now, it probably needs running because those pickups aren't doing a great job, but yeah, you see how it's gone off. So I think it needs a bit of a run. But you can see when the power goes off, you see how they fade away? So fade, on, fade. So if you wanted more of a fade, you'd increase that resistance, but you can't do it too much, otherwise you'll reduce the brightness of the lights as well. Now, but also, because it's still flickering there, we could add another capacitor in parallel, but I think really if I just give this a bit of a run, because that's actually quite good there. I think if I give it a good run, it will sort of it'll sort of run it in. But if you want to get rid of that issue there, you just add another capacitor in parallel, and there's plenty of space to do it. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to put the shell back on, so you literally just clip it back on. And here we go. There's our lights. And I've been busy, I did another one. Better put it on properly. I just love how they fade off, like that. So in the future I might add more capacitance to them. But for the time being, that's brilliant. So hopefully you found this video useful. The rules apply for any coach really, because I mean you can do these Mark 1 coaches in the same manner. The bogies have also got the hole in the centre, so you can do these in exactly the same way I've just showed you with the Mark 3s. The length obviously is different of the LED strip like you'd be using, but it's totally doable. So yeah, if you've got any questions, please just ask away in the comments. I'll try and be helpful. In the description to the video, I'll just put a link to everything I've used here just to help everyone out, because most of the time I think people are buying things to put in their coaches, which you could totally do with these, but if you've got 40 coaches, that's a lot of money's worth. But if you've got a bit of time and you like a bit of DIY, you can do this, and it works perfectly. So I just love the fade. Right, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next one.